Episode 321 of the TV Dudes, recorded February 24th, 2021. This is not some game, Les. This is not some game, Les. That's next week. This week, Kyle is taking a much-needed sabbatical to deal with Icepocalypse fallout, and so it's up to you and me to hold down the fort. So we're going to talk about the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix, the Expanse over on Prime, and the Head over on HBO Max. But before we get to all that, I'm Randy.
I'm Les.
And we're the TV Dudes for this week.
That quiet you heard was Kyle.
Yes. When there was only one set of footprints, that was Kyle carrying us.
Right. You know, like 2 years ago at Comic-Con, there was a Snowpiercer panel, and I just didn't go because I didn't care to go. And then Snowpiercer came out, and I didn't watch it, even though I've heard it's good. It's got Daveed Diggs and stuff. And
Sure.
I'd almost run out of enough television where I was like, hey, wasn't there a Snowpiercer show? And now, after last week, no.
I'm in the same boat. It literally was like coming up and the same thought process. Like, I love Daveed Diggs. I've heard generally good things. It's on HBO Max now, I think. So it's available.
It's somewhere I've got it. Yeah, it's got Jennifer Connelly in it.
And I was like, and then Snowpiercer came to Texas and fucked that forever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if folks know this. I am a summer forever person. One of the reasons I live in Texas is because it rarely gets below 80 here, and I like that shit.
Yeah, I am the opposite, Randy. I hate. I'm that person you post about on Facebook. I hate the 108-degree weather here. But what I really hate is complete system failure of society.
Yeah, that's less fun. Yeah.
While
I'm just saying,
it's cold.
You don't have to shovel 108-degree temperatures.
This is true.
And 108-degree temperatures have never turned off my power for 3 consecutive days.
Yes.
And wrecked my water system and made my business close for a week. It was terrible. Also, y'all might have noticed we didn't have a podcast last week because I think we all had finally gotten power by that point.
Yeah.
But we were also shell shocked we couldn't podcast about TV.
Well, and at that point, it was still rolling for some folks. I mean, it was never rolling. Let's be clear. But it was still on off. Let's say sporadic.
Yeah, we never knew for sure. Mine rolled off at about 1 a.m. on Sunday night, and then rolled back on Wednesday morning at 10:30. So,
when you were learning to drive, you learned that my parents would say stuff like, "Oh yeah, it's a rolling stop," and every once in a while I'd have you'd meet a sarcastic cop or something, and who would be like, "There's no such thing as a rolling stop." Which is like a grown-up authority version of your epidermis is showing, they're just fucking with you as a grammar nerd. But I feel like rolling blackouts makes it sound like it was some kind of equitable, smooth distribution of who lost power at what time. We'll each take a watch, and instead, we just left half the state awake for 8 days.
Yes, yeah. Instead, it was more like a cartoon where somebody turned a switch off and then forgot where the switch was.
I had not thought of it that way, but I'll unplug this lamp. No!
Les, you're familiar with the classic movie Airplane.
Yes.
You remember Leon when he not Leon, but the guy who pulls the plug, and they're all the lights go out on the runway, and they turn up to him, and he just kidding, and plugs it back in. I think that guy was responsible.
Yes, I had a very Christmas Vacation vibe of somewhere in Texas, there's an ERCOT person running around to several wall sockets that each have 300 plugs banging out, trying to figure out what balance gets it just right, Is it on now? No.
Yeah, it was an interesting time, and we're still dealing with repercussions. The whole state was shut down for a week, and then the rest of the country wasn't in great shape either. So
no, but when I saw that map of it's just Texas that's out of power, and not even all of Texas. My mom was 30 minutes from the edge of where she would have been to Texarkana and other states' power. And then the weather right afterwards, the weather now is just fine and gorgeous and rude. I mean, it really feels like a roommate that broke a bunch of your shit, and then it's just acting like that didn't happen the next day.
Yeah, if your roommate came and went on a 3-day meth bender, and then everything was fine after that.
Yeah, like you're just at breakfast the next day, then they're just eating a bowl of cereal, and you're looking past them at a burnt couch, going, "Really? We're just not gonna talk about that."
And they don't even remember.
Yeah, and they're like, "What? When
What are you
did that
talking
happen,
about?
dude?"
Yeah,
Yeah, it's whether it's
that
like a
wasn't me.
Motley
That
Crue
was our other roommate, Urquhart.
movie.
Yeah. So we had originally planned to do this week. We talk about talk shows and game shows, and I think we're all pretty caught up on it. But Kyle this is Kyle's like thing, and so we're going to scoot it out a week. And so Les and I figured we'll talk about our TV diary because we got 2 weeks of TV diary to catch up on, and we're going to talk about some shows that we either wrapped up or finally got a chance to catch up on. I finally watched The Expanse. You wrapped up Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And we're going to talk about The Head over on HBO Max, which I watched a few weeks back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's on my list as well.
But before that, we don't have our power rankings guy this week. So we're going to slide right into the TV diaries.
Let's do it.
So, Les, I don't know about you. I watched a pretty large amount of movies in the last couple of weeks, is what I noticed.
Same, weirdly. I went on a movie bender because of HBO Max, oddly.
Yeah. So I watched. I got drawn in by Amazon Prime. Has already gotten me for several movies now because they keep advertising them, and because movie theaters are a thing right now, everything's going right to HBO Max and Netflix and Prime, and so I just kind of watched them, and I watch movies on everything. And then I also caught up with some of my my watch list that I made when I have that movie app, Letterboxd. So in the realm of new stuff, I watched on Prime The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, which is a time loop movie, and thus something that I'm sure you will watch.
I don't know anything
Um,
about that.
it's a time loop movie.
No shit. Sold.
Yep. Yeah. And then I watched Judas and the Black Messiah, which was fantastic, and maybe my favorite movie I've watched this year
Okay.
as far as new movies go. That's over on HBO Max.
It looks amazing. I've heard great things.
Space Sweepers, which is a super fun Korean sci-fi adventure movie that is over on Netflix, and that was a lot of fun to watch. And then I finally watched Dolomite Is My Name on Netflix, the Eddie Murphy vehicle. There's originally a Charlie Murphy vehicle. Have you seen this?
Yes. Oh yeah. No, I saw that when it came. That was at Fantastic Fest also.
So we're going to
Weirdly.
talk about that one on the Patreon this week, I think, because I have a lot to say about that. I really like that one.
Man, yeah, that was
And
a gem.
also on my watch list that I knocked out that we're going to talk about on Patreon is Booksmart, the sort of teenage girl coming of age comedy that was basically a female super bad.
Yeah, we'll talk about it as well. I'm interested to hear your take on it. I really liked it.
And then I watched the Netflix original I Care a Lot featuring Rosamund Pike, and I have some thoughts on that. And then I rewatched for comfort Midnight Run when I was having Icepocalypse anxiety. I'd watch that a little bit at night because it's on my iPad. I didn't need internet for it because I didn't have internet for it. So I watched that about 20 minutes a night. And then I sat down with my son and rewatched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I also had on my iPad. And then TV-wise, it was all catching up with stuff. Caught up on the last couple episodes of WandaVision, which if you guys haven't seen, I've talked about over on the MCU pod, which our friends Grant and Mike Moody are running. I caught up on The Chase, The Hustler, which we're going to talk about next week, all of The Expanse season 5, most of Mad About You season 4, or the rest of Mad About You season 4, and part of season 5. Caught Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, and then I started with Megan. I started watching Psych, and because that's one of her like comfort shows, and so I've seen episodes 1 through 3 of Psych now. And whenever I say Psych, the theme song starts playing in my head.
Oh man, so you haven't even they do an infinite variety of that. Like they tweak that song for a lot of different. Anytime
Nice.
they do any kind of themed thing, they fuck with that song. The Friendly Indians, I think, is the name of the band that does that.
So yeah, what was on your TV docket?
Let's see. Yeah, I also, for some reason, and we'll discuss on Patreon. I ended up watching a bunch of movies. I looked at HBO Max, and for some reason just started noticing, like, I went through their horror, just looking for a movie to watch, and realized, like, oh, there's a bunch of movies that I'm not dying to watch, but have been on my list
Mhm.
for a long time. Um, so I ended up watching Black Christmas, the 2019 remake,
Mhm.
which was really fun. I'll probably talk a little bit about it on the Patreon. I also watched Cast a Deadly Spell with Fred Ward, where he
Oh
plays Lovecraft.
yeah.
I've seen that since I mean, I've seen it several times in my life. First on VHS when I was a kid, and I love that movie. It's just really fun. Um,
Mhm.
it's, take on magic, and yeah, it's oh god, the cast is great. Um,
Yeah. That was
watched
back when HBO Originals was like a different thing.
Yes, yeah, it was. I mean, it was TV movies, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really fun. I watched a movie called The Apparition, which has Draco Malfoy from Harry Potter and very young Sebastian Stan. Uh,
Oh wow.
it is a really ambitious, somewhat effective horror movie.
Okay.
Like it was worth watching. It's really interesting, but also it doesn't quite work. Uh,
Yeah, but you give it points for ambition. I mean,
yes,
I give points
absolutely,
for ambition.
and the cast is great. I mean, it's an I get the feeling it was rather unknown at the time, but like I don't know how known they were. Clearly, this is pre Winter Soldier, but yeah, everybody in it's good. Um, rewatched The Wizard with Fred Savage, uh, about taking his little brother to California to play in the Nintendo Championships.
Hmm.
I love that movie. I saw it in the theater when it first came out, and I've seen it a
That
million
was
times since.
was that his first thing post Wonder Years,
Might have
or not
been.
Wonder Years,
He's
but Princess Bride rather. I mean.
pretty close. He's real young.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be around Little Monsters time or earlier. Um,
Yeah.
the Power Glove. It's so bad. Uh, I watched Saw and Saw 2.
I need
Uh,
to watch those at some point.
they were so Saw's great. Saw 2's pretty good. I then tried to watch Saw 3, and I tried 3 different times. I could not make it through it. They just get it's not good. I don't know.
Do you know what point Leigh Whannell what? Because Leigh Whannell wrote those, right? Did he
Yes, and I
lead with like
believe Saw
two?
3 is around where there's another director that steps in, and I just don't like the dude style as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I believe there's a point where I believe where the series arcs up, so I'm going to try and fight through it or find that point. I watched License to Drive and Ski School.
I
Uh,
saw that.
I love both those movies. They're terrible. Ski movies are their own thing. There's not a lot of them, but they're a weird thing. Out Cold is an homage to a genre that barely exists. Ski School and Ski School 2 being pretty much the whole genre. Uh,
Did you do you remember the Always Sunny episode with their ski movie? Did you see
no,
that
I will have
episode?
to go find that
They
now.
it is a dead on parody of 80s ski movies. It's
That's
amazing.
awesome. And I also love License to Drive. It's just great. It came up in a book I just read, bio of a band. It got mentioned. Somebody in the band was dating Heather Graham at the time. uh, I watched Prometheus finally. That's
Why? Why would you do that?
I had just never seen it. It is parts of a good movie that they don't show you the rest of.
Man, I hate that movie on a visceral level.
It's
Like
so
I rarely hate movies this way. There's I've been watching that YouTube series, Pitch Meeting.
yeah. Oh, I watched the pitch
And,
meeting for this app because usually those make me mad when I like the movie, but no, on this I wanted to see it. So do they ever tell you that? Oh no, never comes up again.
the pitch meeting for Prometheus was like it was the cure for having watched Prometheus.
Yes, it was perfect. And I was kind of glad I watched Prometheus just to be able to get the pitch meeting joke. Uh, it's just a mess. I really want to rewatch Jeannot's Alien Resurrection now because I'm pretty sure it's marginally better.
It is better. It is. It's a better movie.
That's
You know what I'll say?
ridiculous.
One thing Prometheus, it's pretty. Like it's
Mm.
very beautifully. It renders a future really all the
Oh,
spaceship stuff.
yeah. But I kind of felt like I was in trouble from the start. It had that same, what was Raised by Wolves that we just watched? It had that same
Yeah, yeah,
no. I know you can make a good movie. That's going to lull me into a sense that this is good, but it may not be.
yeah,
It's just that you can make
yeah,
a good looking movie. I also
yeah.
to jump back onto the Saw track. I watched more James Wan ancillary movies that are not directed by Wan. I watched
Hmm.
Annabelle Creation and Annabelle Comes Home. So there's now
I thought,
only one Annabelle movie I've not seen.
is it just Annabelle?
Yes, so I've not seen just the Annabelle one. About
Everybody has different everybody has different opinions on horror movies. My buddy Dave, who was the person who put me on to Conjuring and a
Hmm.
lot of that, James Wan, I think he hated Annabelle, but liked the other two Annabelle movies.
That's
But
what
I'm
I had
not
heard.
sure.
Annabelle seems to be the least liked of the three. Creation was the second one they did, and it's actually a prequel to Annabelle, and it got a lot higher praise. It has Anthony LaPaglia and Miranda Otto in it.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
they're running an orphanage or helping out an orphanage. They've got a huge house. He used to be a doll maker. What could go wrong? Uh, it people bag on jump scares in horror movies, and I get it. If it's the only joke you're going to tell for 30 minutes, your stand-up set is terrible.
Yeah,
You know, but they work. So like
yeah.
when done effectively with good timing, I don't mind a jump scare. What I really look for in horror movies is getting off some uh, effect or scare I've just never quite seen before.
Hmm.
And Annabelle, each of these movies did that at least twice, where I was like, not seen it done like that. Bravo. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I also watched Nomadland with Frances McDormand.
That's been on my radar. How was that?
Um, it's very, very good and is also slightly sad, even if
Yeah,
you can't quite put your finger on. It's not like anything big and awful happens, but it's melancholy and sad. It's beautifully
right.
done.
Okay,
I
okay,
mean, beautifully done. I would recommend watching it, but also you're probably going to cry a little bit. Uh,
okay.
Unless you're Grant. Uh, let's see. I also watched. Let's see. So in television, then I watched. Finished watching The Great finally with Fanny. She loved it. Can't wait for. I think it's got a season two. We're definitely going to
Nice.
watch The Favorite. She's not seen it. Rewatched them Parks and Rec. That's a constant. I caught up on WandaVision. Really enjoying where that's finally going.
Yeah, I
Even
was
if I
gonna.
was annoyed at I felt like they were taking advantage of knowing that I was stuck or just being able to. It felt like willful indulgence, like putting up with an indie band doing some crazy triple album bullshit. Those first couple of episodes, but I like where it's gone. It surprised me. I
So
still
yeah, I
want to.
want to talk to you about that a little bit because you and I both were a little down on this. You more than me. I think you were definitely like, "Fuck this! What are you doing?"
I really
Um,
didn't mean to be, but I kind of came out going, wow. So I expected like a Where's Waldo puzzle, and instead I got like what six things are different in these two pictures,
yeah.
and then I realized like everyone around me was like, no man, you just don't have the patience for understanding that this is truly a Where's Waldo puzzle.
So here's where I'm at, and I feel like you and I are probably very similar to this. I will admit when I'm wrong. I've been wrong about several things on WandaVision. Like I didn't think Sword was going to be involved. I didn't think Agatha Harkness was going to be a thing, and I'm still sure Mephisto isn't going to be there, which I think at this point means Mephisto's probably involved because I've been wrong on everything. That said, I don't think I was wrong about those first three episodes. I feel like the first three episodes should have been one episode.
Yeah,
It should have had the color change in the middle. It should have ended with Monica getting ejected, and then episode four should have been episode two. I think at one
I
point I
agree.
said episode three should have been, but at this point I'm like those first three episodes were super self indulgent.
I went back after the reveal and rewatched episode one just to see because they even say it in the song of like, bet you didn't notice, but or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
And I went back and was like, no, this is just a 50s pastiche episode. I mean, like they hint that something spooky's going, but that's not the same as dropping
yeah.
clues.
Nope.
Like I didn't make any when I was complaining about the first few episodes. I didn't make any pronouncement about what I thought was going on. I mean, other than we are clearly in a reality she's affecting that is
Yeah.
not quite real. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
framework, but like clearly she's fucking with it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and outside of that, this is just taking too long to get go. But like we know that,
Yeah.
so move on with it. Like I don't want to spend three. I didn't want to spend three episodes with somebody dancing around going, but what's going on?
Yeah.
Like,
Same here.
well, I mean, clearly she's fucking with it. No, but what is it? No, but she's fucking with it. Get
Yep.
to that. So
And
yeah,
the fact of how much I love it now tells me that it was that this first three, it just wasn't what I
it
wanted.
was just
And so
pacing and
yeah,
an indulgence, and it just irritated me. But I think
yeah,
what made me sound like or made me feel like I was being a lot more angry about it than I was at. I didn't mean to be that angry at the show. I kept watching it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it just that I don't know, I felt like people weren't admitting that, like, no, but it can just be okay. I mean, it can just be slow and okay right now.
Yeah, yeah,
It's genius. You need to pour over it. Like, I'm pretty sure
yeah,
I caught every Easter egg that was in the thing.
yeah.
Like, when I looked up a couple of sites of like the 30 Easter eggs I bet you didn't see in WandaVision, it's like Vision's tie has a diamond pattern on it. That
You're
alludes
like,
to his costume in the comics. Like,
I'm like, yeah, I got that. What?
cool.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I understand what they're doing with the like a love letter sitcoms is right up my alley. I love sitcoms, and this latest episode that was the Modern Family thing, where they perfectly blended some of the Modern Family stuff and like made nodded to Kat Dennings, her
Mm.
sitcom, and she was sort of playing her sitcom-y character a little bit. Like it was fun. I like the nod to sitcoms. I don't want them to do away with the sitcom element, but they went too heavy on one. It was like way too much cinnamon in those first three episodes. Just like I want a little cinnamon. I don't want
I
all
think it
cinnamon.
would have been super cool if at the midpoint seam of the first episode they had gotten to the dinner party point and were just playing
Mm-hmm.
out this sitcom day for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
and he chokes and they say fix it, and she snaps her fingers, and he suddenly they're gone, and Vision needs to be getting ready for the magic show,
Right. Yeah. Cut
and
cut some of that stuff. Yeah.
like, well, we just roll with it, and like suddenly
Yeah.
they're in another episode because that episode went wrong. And
Yep.
and
Yep.
then I don't know, that's, I just wanted it to roll faster because we got it already. Like, we we can see that it's not a blind trail. We can see down that path, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
But I
st-
think
oh, good.
we're both digging it now.
Oh,
We're both
absolutely,
enjoying it.
absolutely. I'm very much enjoying it now.
Yeah.
I obviously caught up on some game shows for next week. Sabrina, which is, I keep forgetting, is not Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I think I just don't want to say chilling because of last week. Uh, I finally started rewatching some Brooklyn Nine-Nine on the news that it was ending,
Mm-hmm.
and even though, man, it's still weird watching cops sometimes. Every once in a while, they do
Mm-hmm.
actually have something cop related in the plot,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not always. The show is very often just about them as goofballs. Uh, but it is, I very much, I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's not a complete rewatch. I'm skipping over some episodes, but I'm realizing that because I binge watched it straight through a couple of years ago, there's some I kind of don't remember as much.
Oh yeah.
And so I caught an episode the other day where I was like, fuck, I forgot half of this. Uh, Fanny and I are finally watching The Office, which I've seen several seasons of. I saw Pam and Jim kiss, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I dropped off before Michael left even. Um,
Interesting.
I have The Office is hysterical, and then Michael walks in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point I'm tense and holding my breath. There was a meme that went around the other day of like, The Office is hysterical, me watching The Office, and like,
Yeah.
and I felt that because it is hysterical, but also I can only do 2 episodes in a row. It's like trying to watch Oz, but as a sitcom. Can't binge this. And then also
Yeah.
John Oliver came back, and so I've been watching John Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of TV. I fucking tore through movies. Yeah, we'll
Mm-hmm.
talk more about them on Patreon, but I went through a shitload of movies this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Patreon, this is a good place to remind you that you can go over to patreon.com/tvdudes, throw us a buck an episode. In exchange, we get to keep with our streaming services and pay for our hosting costs, and you get bonus content each week. This week, we're going to talk about movie binging and the movies we've been watching lately. We also have our $20 shorter level, so if there are shows you want to throw into the rotation, you can buy in at that level and give us a couple of ideas. All right, let's jump over to old business and let's talk about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Yes. So when this show first, God, when did this show first start? 4 years ago now, I guess, or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2018. No, just 2 years ago. Um, this was one of the first that I noticed of Netflix dividing things into like books or parts or whatever, and like,
Mm-hmm.
are these seasons? How much of the show's coming out? What are y'all doing? They're like, well, we're doing whatever we want. There's no sweeps week, so fuck it. Uh, so Chilling Adventures of Sabrina took me a minute to get used to because they do this weird focus shift thing where the center of the frame is in focus, whoever's talking.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else in the frame is slightly blurry, and it gives everything an I've been roofied in a curio shop kind of vibe. Like, you shouldn't have let that old man shut the door to this antique store. You were definitely going to die in here, kind of feeling. Um, That said, once I get used to that kind of Halloween look, I I love this show. It's very much the opposite of The Good Place in tone, but the same way that when you first sit down to The Good Place, even in the first episode, even long before the opening, the first season twist, uh, you can tell that this show is going more bonkers than most shows,
Mhm.
right? And then slowly as it goes, you realize that like that's not an occasional thing. That's to the core. Like it didn't, it's not just bonkers in the individual episodes. The whole first season's bonkers, and then where it is by the fourth season is double extra secret bonkers. Uh, that's how Sabrina is for me. They started with this like, oh, isn't it cute? Witches all get their power from the Dark Lord, and so it's a constant like, I'll see you in heaven, you bastard. Uh, like all their language is flipped, haha.
Yeah.
But everything's still got this Greendale Archie vibe. And then by like season 2, she started to like have to really fight against her destiny. I mean, it goes from being like me and my pals sometimes fight an occasional monster to like, oh hey, you're the child of the Dark Lord. You kind of are supposed to ascend to the throne of hell. And then by this point in the show, she's queen of hell, or has been at least for a
Right.
while. Uh, she split herself into two. There are two Sabrinas running around that can't really meet without causing a temporal issue. And Satan's involved, Lilith is involved. There's another person that wants the throne. Uh, but really, what's going on in part 4 this year is the high priest of the Dark Lord that they dethroned at the end of season 1 has been off in the wilderness trying to find something more powerful to come back and smite everybody that ever dethroned him. And he's gone and found an eldritch terror, like a Lovecraftian beastie
Huh.
that
Okay.
he's gotten and raised from an egg and like unleashed the dark ones behind the old gods through the like all of that bullshit. And so this season they have like 8 eldritch terrors, and it it's difficult sometimes in a show to make something seem as scary and powerful. Like they're gonna have to defeat it, and they're gonna have to defeat it in like an episode or two because you got 8 of
Hmm.
these things to go through. So sometimes it's a little difficult to make the Eldritch Terror seem as scary as like they're selling it. You know, like
Yeah.
y'all have killed 3 of these so far, so are we sure the fourth one's that powerful? like like Sabrina keeps mowing through them, but they are getting, they are fun. The just seeing like they just fought the weird, like this creepy squid infection thing that's very I don't know, just very Lovecraftian. Somebody's tongue turns to like they're in the middle of kissing and somebody's like, no, something's wrong with your tongue, like real wrong, like get off me, go to a mirror. And like their tongue is now a tentacle with suckers on it, and like like this show is just crazy. Yeah, uh, I very much enjoy a show that commits to its bit this much, and everybody's performances are just great. Everybody just seems to be really digging into their roles at this point, and I think this is the last season.
I think it is too. I was going to ask, does it come to an ending or?
I haven't. I'm just. I think I'm an episode shy of the last ending. I mean
Okay.
of the last episode. And so but I believe this comes to like an actual conclusion because they know that they're ending. Um,
So I
Kiernan
only watched the.
Shipka is the girl that plays Sabrina. She just does a great
Hmm.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, I love her.
Also, Lucy
Um,
Davis and Miranda Otto as the sisters are spectacular.
yeah, I have only watched the season 1 of this, and I liked it, but I didn't. It didn't quite make the level of I have to keep watching this. It reminds me a little bit. Did you really like that Mother Fort Salem?
Motherland Fort
Uh,
Salem. Yes,
and this feels of a piece with that in some ways.
this is like a darker horror vibe than that. Like
Yeah. Okay.
this like
Yeah.
spiders and Halloween. Like this feels more Nightmare Before Christmas. Like this
Right.
is
Right.
Tim Burton's Motherland Fort Salem.
I
Uh,
get that.
and so I think I dig this a little more. That feels more like you could almost take the magic out of that and just have it be about cadets.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, you're generally still digging it though.
Oh yeah, I'm glad because I wasn't the first season. I liked it, but I wasn't. I keep forgetting about it when they drop one of these on Netflix. I'm like, oh yeah, Sabrina. I've watched hours and hours of that. I should probably keep going. But it wasn't until like Lisa was like, "Oh, have you watched any of the new Sabrina?" I'm almost caught up to where you were. I'm like, "Where was I?" Uh, and now that I'm watching season 4, I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is great." I'm just so glad that it was fun the whole time, but where it's built to is wonderful and couldn't have been done without the previous work. You know,
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like it's one of those that I need to catch up on. I'll put it on the
I
list.
would say it's worth catching up on. I mean, I wouldn't say drop what you're doing right now and go run to watch it, but it's a gem of a show that's sitting out there.
Well, it definitely slipped ahead of Snowpiercer this week. So,
Yes.
uh, but speaking of when the snowpocalypse hit before we lost power, I had a day off on that Sunday, which all of a sudden, like I don't usually work on Sundays anyway, but I was like, I was staring down the barrel of, oh, well, I'm gonna have a few days off, and I was like, let's catch up on some stuff. And so I went to one thing that's been on my list. That is the Expanse season 5. I talked about season 4 recently when Grant was guesting, and Grant was like, I can't believe you watched that show. It's so slow. and uh, and I didn't realize in watching season 4 that basically I can't piecemeal watch this show. And then when they dropped season 5, they decided to do the new Amazon thing of like dropping 3 episodes and then dropping one a week. And I was like, I know I can't watch this show like that because if they drop 3 episodes and then one a week, I'm gonna have no idea who any of the
Yeah.
characters are, what's going on. I'll make no connection to it.
Well, with the
And
big
so
season 4 finale reveal of them finally leaving Earth and going into space.
I so I finally decided to go ahead and wait, and all 10 episodes were there. So I went and binged all 10. And again, this is such a good sci-fi show. It's very smart. It does the politics. It does the sort of their aliens are not alien. It's like a weird lost alien technology. It's like it's almost Cthulhu in its way. It's like it's this terrifying alien intelligence that is like technology way beyond anything these civilizations have. And the main thrust of it is like this war between Earth, Mars, and what they call the Belt, which is
Yeah,
like the
Belters. Yeah.
scrappy. Yeah, the Belt is they're scrappy sort of working class guys who have always been shit on by Earth and Mars. And in season 5, there's a basically a Che Guevara of space who is basically taken up the cause of the Belters, and he drops rocks on Earth and Mars, like mass driver rocks, and basically creates a nuclear apocalypse on both planets. He basically takes out major cities, major states, kills millions of people, and then basically announces he's like, no, I am the belt now, and all the Belter clans are going to unite behind me, and you're going to have to do what we say. And because he's so scary and he has this technology, the belt basically all does get behind him, even though he has killed Belters that we know and like before. And so there's this story of like, and this guy is Naomi Nagata, who is one of the main characters, one of the main four on the Rocinante, the main ship. It's her ex-husband, and she has a child with him who is now like a 20 something kid, and he is basically being taken in by his father and doing all this terrorist shit. And Naomi is like trying to sway him away from his father in this terrorist ways, while Holden, her boyfriend, is off doing other stuff, and I forget he's got a storyline. And then the pilot and the marine from Mars are in one of the other ships, and they're off doing this. Like they're trying to track this guy down. So there's all these like multiple storylines. The woman who was the president of the UN is now out, and she's like running basically sort of an NGO, and is basically trying to manipulate things from behind the scenes. So there's a political plot. There's a tracking plot. And as I think about it, as I talk about it, I'm realizing this sounds more like 24 in space more than anything else. Like it is like everybody has their own kind of agenda. Everybody's a little bit skeevy. Um, and Holden is our hero. Is basically everybody knows looks at him as like, Holden, don't do what you do, which is he does the heroic thing that fucks everything up because he's got no subtlety. So he will do the right thing and it will always fuck everything up. And that does happen in this one as well. So yeah, it's there. This is all about sort of like the war between Mars and Earth had kind of cooled, and now there's like this third force who's trying to basically shift the power in the galaxy. It's really good. They kill off a major character in a way I did not see coming. They do this really interesting thing where Naomi is trapped aboard a ship that's sending a distress signal that is automated. That's basically a fake to try and draw in her friends and kill them, and she has to figure out a way with no air and to get out and change the signal. And it's a really clever bit of sort of survival sci-fi. This show does what it does really well. What it doesn't do is explore clear, neat plot lines and distinctive characters because the characters are all distinct. But if you're not paying attention, you're like, wait, who's that guy again? And I think that could get frustrating. But when you sit and rewatch it, I feel like it's super rewarding. And it is some of the smartest sci-fi on TV.
Yeah, the friends of mine who have it, it's kind of like Sabrina I was just talking about. The friends of mine who have watched it have talked about how rewarding it is to put the time in on it.
Which takes us to The Head, which is
this is HBO Max, right?
Yes, and this is a Spanish show that is weirdly it's in Spanish. I think it's a Spanish horror show, but it's about a Scandinavian research team in Antarctica, and it is a murder mystery. It wears its heart on its sleeve. The first episode, they have the crew, the crew that's left there watching The Thing, and so they're nodding to like, yeah, they're gonna do the paranoia, what's going on thing. But the head is named because they find this guy outside in the ice who's had his head cut off. And what happens is the day shift or whatever there's 3 month shift or whatever. The guy leaves. He leaves his wife there, and he leaves all his friends. And he and some of the other guys go, and they come back 3 months later, and only 2 people are left alive, and nobody seems to be able to tell them what's going on. And then we see this story over the course of 6 episodes, flashing back through what happened to them, and then eventually what happened at the previous Antarctic expedition that led to the murders, and who was doing the murders. They switch who did the murders several times. Like they do these big reveals of what happened. And the thing that I found compelling but also frustrating is that they don't give you when I watch a murder mystery, I want to know, I want to be able to figure out what's going on. And they don't give you the information to be able to do that. They like, here's the episode and here's what happened here. And I'm like, well, if I'd known that, I could have put this together, but you didn't tell me that until now. And what you're going to tell me next episode may contradict what you're telling me now. Yeah. And so I watched it. I found it very compelling. I like the mystery of like, well, who's doing the killing? What's going on? They've got this very arrogant guy who seems to have solved global warming, but everybody hates him, and they think he might have caused all the murders. And they're like, well, if he did do this and we out him, we're basically dooming the planet because his global warming solution is going to go away. And so there's that raised. And the guy, his wife, maybe looks like she was involved somehow. And now it's like she wasn't just a victim, maybe she was involved. And it goes through all this stuff. And it got to what I found was a pretty satisfying ending as to what happened. And it involves sort of a woman being harassed and accidentally murdered, and this all being a cover up. And then there was a bunch of like accidents and mishaps, and there was some murders with some of those accidents. And I thought, oh, that's a really interesting plot. And then they give me the Kaiser Soze twist that they didn't need in the last like 10 minutes and reveal that everything they just told me was bullshit. And here's what actually happened. And I was so pissed. I was like, you did not need to do that. I didn't need this character to be that. I didn't need this story. Like you're acting like this is a clever. The thing about Usual Suspects, and I know that there are people like Ed Brubaker hates Usual Suspects, and he's a crime comic genius. So I think and I don't know why he hates it, but I suspect that what he hates about it is that it doesn't play fair with the audience.
No.
It gives you this big twist at the end of there's no way you could have seen this coming. And for that works for me with Usual Suspects.
I'm looking at a bunch of criminals, and you just think one of them's just not a criminal when actually he is also a criminal just running a long con on all the rest. Yeah, it's not fair, but it is just another crime in a movie of crimes.
Yeah, it works.
So it works.
This is like this big elaborate mastermind set piece in the middle of what looked like a murder mishap thing. And I was just like, wait a minute, why is she a master criminal? Why did you reveal all of this? Like, give me hints to it earlier. I'm not buying this twist. I don't like this twist.
Did you ever see the movie High Tension?
No,
It's got a fucking great, like, well, this is DVD cover. It tells you when this first came out. Um, it's a girl standing out in the desert. I want to say it's an
I've seen
Australian movie
that.
or French
I've
movie
seen
maybe.
the I've seen
She's
the
got
cover.
the
Yeah.
barbed wire wrapped bat, I think.
Hmm.
So it's two girls trying to escape this psycho killer, and I mean, it's relentless. Like it's just that Jason kind of horror movie, and
Hmm.
it's badass. Like I was really loving it. Like one of those like finishing an action horror movie with your phone half out. Like if this fucking wraps up like I think it's about to, I'm going to text 5 people. Like I got 5 friends that have to see this right now. And then they reveal that the killer's been one of the two girls all along. I don't give a fuck about
uh,
spoiling it because it's terrible. Don't give a
yeah.
shit. It's everything that's worth watching in the movie is not can't be spoiled. It's just the relentless Home Alone trapness of getting out of a killer. Uh, the reveal of it is worthless and is awful because it can't work. Your
Hmm.
brain, I mean, immediately starts going to 2 or 3 scenes where she cannot have been that person and
Hmm.
be with her friend.
Hmm.
And like it just can't work. And
Yeah.
and it feels like somebody in the writer's room at the last minute went, you know what would be super fucking cool? Only you hadn't laid any of the groundwork for that. In fact, you've done
Yeah.
things that directly make it impossible, and that's what the head sounds like of like, you know, it'd be super
Yeah.
fucking cool. What
Yeah.
if she was Kaiser Soze? Like,
Yeah. And
well, I
it's like
mean,
it's unnecessary.
I guess she could be Moriarty the whole time, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really disappointing to me because I thought this was beautifully shot. It's got great performances, and I thought it was very compelling, except that they kept doling out the story in weird chunks where it's like, and now here's this story. And I was like, you guys aren't telling me the story. You're just, I have to watch at the pace you're telling me. And I have to just follow along and hope that you go somewhere I want to go. And you didn't. And now I'm retroactively pissed about the whole thing. And I'm a little worried that WandaVision could do that because that is the
Hmm.
trick. If you can't land your bird, it doesn't matter how great the middle of it is.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a bit of a rough takeoff.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I wanted to. We don't usually do TV news, but there's a couple of things coming out that have made my radar, and oddly, I, Netflix is always going to continue to drop a million things a week without saying anything about it,
Right.
and shows are going to keep surprising us and stuff. But there's some stuff. I mean, Supernatural ended. There's some stuff I used to watch that just stopped. I don't know when some other things are coming back really.
Hmm.
Um, but in talking about writer decisions or tone decisions or plot decisions like in the head or in high
Hmm.
tension or whatever, where it would have been really great if a producer had stepped in and said, maybe don't do that. Uh, Zack Snyder's Justice League is coming out on HBO Max. It's not a 4-part series. It is a 4-hour movie. Somebody asked Snyder directly about it in Twitter, I think, and he said no, it's not episode. I mean, it's 4 hours long. It's just a 4-hour movie. Um, there was a huge Variety article, and I gotta say, I'm looking forward to it a little more than I was, uh, mostly because it didn't cost me anything personally. But and I can't. I mean, when people are like, "Why would HBO pour in blah blah blah?" The money for Justice League was already spent, recouped, and
Hmm.
done.
Hmm.
This got them an entire second movie for like a quarter of the original budget.
Hmm.
Why would they not do it? Uh,
I read that piece too, and I wanted to punch Zack Snyder just like I always do when I read an interview with him.
but I'm so glad that there were at least at some point, and it may be out of the way now because he didn't even take a paycheck for this. He's just so he can have as much control as possible. Uh, Bruce being in love with Lois and realizing that he needs to resurrect Superman is a terrible plot idea. And please don't do that. Oh, it's as bad as Martha. Uh,
Yeah, you just don't give comic book movies to people who don't understand comic books. It's a bad idea.
so the one thing out of that Variety article though that really struck me that I had not ever thought of. Marvel makes movies about normal people who have acquired godlike powers and don't know quite how to handle them.
Mm-hmm.
And DC has attempted to make movies about detached gods who are supposed to act like mortals and can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And I not quite. It's like the first time you heard the like, Superman is really Clark,
Yeah.
but Bruce Wayne is really Batman. That like the masks are flipped the other way for them. Like Batman or Bruce Wayne is the secret like Bruce Wayne is the
Right.
fake identity.
That's the thing with Zack Snyder. I feel like he's. And I see this in comics a lot. You see people come in from movies or TV or novelists, and they come in and they do a story. They feel like I've got a brand new take on this.
Mhm.
What if Batman is the real person and Bruce Wayne's the mask? And you have to take them aside and be like, that was done in 1983.
Yes, every comic book nerd knows that like a fucking Aesop's fable or like a
Yes.
Ben Franklin axiom. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a stitch in time saves nine. Yes, a Batman thing. Yeah.
And then Zack Snyder will double down on things. He's like, he will act like these characters are real in a way that even the most delusional fan in my comic shop doesn't. The whole like, grow up, you think these characters don't kill? I'm like, no, they don't, because none of them are real, dude. You're the one making them kill. Like,
Yeah. I would say that Snyder should have been working on The Boys, but he would have taken all the fun out of it.
yeah, he would take the fun out of it. Yeah,
It had
he
just
should
been
be
slow
doing.
motion.
He should be doing his own superhero thing. That's just this dull, angry Ayn Rand superhero.
Yeah,
thing.
no, Zack Snyder's Astro City Fountainhead,
Oh,
like that would work, but just quit doing it with Superman.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still it didn't bother me the level it bothered friends of mine because it doesn't take away from all other Superman stories that exist out there. But
Right.
the Man of Steel thing with him leaving Jonathan to die was so, like,
Yes.
you can't ever fully make that work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's gonna happen. It didn't cost me anything. I'm probably gonna see it because I mean Waterworld is still fun. But that's happening, I believe, March 18th on HBO Max. The thing I really am excited about, though, comes out this summer. That's all I've heard is just signed. I have no idea what date. Kevin
Yeah.
Can Fuck Himself is going to be an AMC hour-long show that is directly in the title referencing Kevin Can Wait, the Kevin James sitcom, which I did not
Okay.
watch, but apparently it killed off the wife character and then made it a punchline.
Oh wow.
I don't know the details of it. That's so bad that I want to go find the episode to watch it and decide for myself. But the reputation for it apparently is Kevin Can Wait was renowned for literally just running out of ideas and killing off the wife. And so the premise of this show is that, like Modern Family style, or in every sitcom, the mom is just this put upon workhorse all the way back to June Cleaver, who's just the butt of jokes and there to assist the plots of all the male characters. And so you've got Annie Murphy, who is Alexis from Schitt's Creek, and she is the mom in a sitcom, and it is full on laugh track sitcom. The colors pop, everything, like all the jokes, and then whenever she turns away a little bit Fleabag style, it's regular world. And so I don't know quite what the balance is, like to whether she's living in a, like, I don't know if it's a Pleasantville world and she's breaking out of it, or if this is just like the way they're showing the illusion of her marriage to her. But she starts to come out of it more and more and goes on starts to wreck her sitcom life by going into these fugue real world things. It looks like her best friend is just chain smoking behind her, like, oh come on, just swear the F word. It's saying F this and F that is so much worse. It looks dark and fucked up.
So here's the thing I learned about Kevin Can Wait, which I didn't know. First of all, I think Kevin James is a terrible actor, and I just don't like him for various reasons. But I swear, I thought Leia Remini was his wife on that show. Apparently, she's his ex-partner, and he's a former cop.
Okay.
And his wife is another person. So I was like,
Erin Hayes, yes, who's in Bill and Ted. She's in the new Bill and Ted.
I was like, wait a minute. They killed off Leia Remini? No. She is his former partner. And I was like, it seems like she suffered enough because she was in,
Yeah, she
she
was
was
on
in
King of
Scientology.
Queens.
Yeah. And she was on King of Queens. I think that's where I was blending her. But yeah, okay. So yeah, that's a wild one. I just saw this today, Les. I have not investigated, but I also saw it looks like they're doing a Frasier reboot.
Okay.
Which I guess some folks are maybe excited for. And don't get me wrong, I liked a lot of that cast, but there's a big problem at the center of it, which is isn't Frasier himself kind of a scumbag?
He's insane, as I understand it. Like, and not in a fun Busey way.
Like I think the last time I enjoyed him was in Boss before I knew what a terrible person he was.
Let's see.
So I don't know that you go back to Frasier. That seems like a crazy thing.
But
I'd love for Carrie Gilpin to get some work, or Perry Gilpin to get some work. Yeah, Paramount Plus is doing a Frasier reboot.
he endorsed Giuliani in the 2008 primary, but he campaigned for McCain. He endorsed Romney. He endorsed Carson.
Okay, but I thought he was also like supposed to be like a like didn't he have an underage girl relationship and like I thought there was a bunch of creepy stuff that
Yes,
came out about
in 1995, Grammer was accused of sleeping with his child's underage babysitter. A grand jury chose not to indict. The young woman's delay of more than a year in pressing charges against an insanely powerful man made it difficult. They just said Mr. Grammer made it difficult to support her claim.
So the new incarnation is from Chris Harris from How I Met Your Mother, and Joe Cristalli from Life in Pieces, and Kelsey Grammer is like executive producing. What's weird is like the show. One of the writers of that show, one of the big people, died in the 9/11 flight. Was it? I think it was David Angel, who was really one of like the guiding lights. So this is kind of like trying to do Cheers without James L. Brooks. Like this is weird.
Yeah.
Or not James L. Brooks, but James Burrows. Like it feels weird to go back to it, but I don't know. I guess we'll see.
I wonder if he'll revamp the theme song.
Oh wow! In this news, Grammer is starring in an ABC multicam comedy alongside Alec Baldwin. That's going to be a fun set,
right? Oh my god! I'm sure the two of them will be perfectly reasonable.
Let's just do a show about the making of that show.
Oh, absolutely. Like they don't even have to be the same show, but just book it on the soundstage next to whatever the fuck Charlie Sheen's doing. Is Charlie Sheen still alive? He's still alive.
I don't know.
I think Anger Management's probably still going.
Yeah, I didn't even Netflix deal. Isn't he making 100 shows?
Like a Tubi original or something?
Yeah, it's the only show that survived the transfer from Quibi to Roku, probably. It's a Charlie Sheen show.
Surviving a Quibi to Roku transfer sounds like something that has happened to Charlie Sheen.
So that'll do it for us this week. Thank you, Les, for being my co-pilot here.
Thank you, Randy. And
thank you.
Warm thoughts to Kyle, who is dealing with fallout from a very cold week.
Yes. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our patrons. Reminder that you can go to patreon.com/tvdudes, become a patron, and if you do such a thing, you will be able to listen to our Patreon episodes, which includes this week me and Les talking about movies, some recent movies, and binging movies, and that kind of thing. But until that time, until next week,
TV Dudes out!
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.